In the second worst kept secret of the F1 season, Aston Martin have officially announced the signing of former Red Bull Chief Technical Officer Adrian Newey. From Racing News 365, my name is Nick Golding, and joining me for this very special F1 update is, of course, lead editor Ian Parks, who has a quite special background behind him. Ian, you were at the announcement of Newey joining Aston Martin, officially starting March the 1st, 2025. Lawrence Stroll has got his man.
It's taken a while, apparently, and hello everybody, a very warm welcome to the Aston Martin Technology Campus down at Silverstone. Yes, quite a special announcement. To say, it's taken a while. Lawrence revealed during the press conference here that he first started contact with Adrian about 3 years ago. Off and on, they met across various gyms around the world, bumped into one another on treadmills and cycling bikes and all sorts, and they touched base. But it was not until April time, at early May time, when Adrian announced that after 19 years, he would be leaving Red Bull after all the success he's achieved there, that Lawrence decided, this is it. This is the man I now need to lead what is already quite an extraordinary talented technical team, should I say. Obviously, it recruited Dan Fallows 18 months ago to lead the technical operation, technical director. Adrian joining as the managing technical partner of Aston Martin F1. But crucially as well, and this is the significant bit, he becomes a shareholder of the Aston Martin Formula One team. So he has a vested interest and not only obviously continuing his legacy, pushing Aston Martin towards the very front of the Formula One grid, but a vested interest financially. He will want that team to do the very best it possibly can to ensure that he's not only getting a good financial return for himself, but a good financial return for all the other shareholders across Aston Martin.
It was a fascinating press conference, obviously, with Lawrence Stroll and Adrian Newey in particular. Obviously, as you mentioned there, they've actually been in contact for a few years. But what was really interesting is how Adrian's discussed the significance that Lawrence has played in his move to Aston Martin, how Lawrence is an old school team owner, but also Lawrence Stroll showing that the signing of Newey is a sign of real intent of what Aston Martin is trying to achieve. And this does feel like the most significant moment in Aston Martin's F1 history.
Yeah, Adrian touched on the significance of Lawrence with their discussions, how committed, how passionate he was. As you've mentioned, an old school kind of team owner. Adrian mentioned in the past that team owners used to be team principals, a bit like Ron Dennis, a little bit like Eddie Jordan, those kind of guys. Obviously, yes, Lawrence isn't the team principal. He is the team owner along with his consortium, but he really has a vested interest, more than you see with many other team owners up and down the grid. Quite front-facing, really wanting to do everything he possibly can to push this team, as I say, towards those Grand Prix victories, towards, in particular, those World Championship titles that he has long craved ever since he took over this team. So for Adrian, that was crucial. And I touched on Eddie Jordan, actually, just there, Nick, and I was chatting to Eddie behind the scenes here, and I'll give you a little nugget. Nothing on record, but I can at least give you this a little aside. And he was asked, what we all know that Eddie Jordan is Adrian Newey's manager, and he was asked, what was the deciding factor for getting this deal over the line, and he said that Aston Martin, of all the teams up and down the paddock that were chasing Adrian's signature, and pretty much it was virtually all the other 8 teams, if you roll out Red Bull, of course, where he just left, and obviously coming to Aston Martin, but pretty much every other team was interested in Adrian. Eddie said that Aston Martin produced a comprehensive, detailed and structured package to lure Adrian, and that, for them, was the key component for this deal. Yes, of course, there was a lot of financial wrangling as to, and obviously we've seen figures as to what Adrian might be earning, 20 million one publication, 30 million pounds another. Who knows what the actual figure is, but nevertheless it is a significant financial sum. But for Eddie and Adrian, as I say, it was that detailed, structured package. They seemed to go the extra mile more than any other team. And as we well know, Ferrari, of course, was one team that was particularly interested in signing Adrian. Well, it seems that Aston Martin came with the right package, the right deal that has managed to get Adrian into this building that he's going to be starting March the 1st, 2025.
And of course, Adrian will be leading Aston Martin's development for his 2026 F1 car. And of course, that will be when the new power unit regulations are introduced. And it will also be when Aston Martin starts working with Honda, because of course, Honda are going to be powering Aston Martin when the new regs are introduced. A manufacturer that obviously Adrian has good experience of working with during Honda's time with Red Bull. But with Adrian now with Aston Martin, it does feel like this is the final piece of the jigsaw puzzle to make Aston Martin contenders for the title, contenders for race wins. They really have no excuse now, is it fair to say?
Yeah, Lawrence described Adrian as the biggest piece of the puzzle. And when you think of all the other pieces that have been fitted into place over the course of the past few years, Dan Fallows, we got Enrico Cardile coming on from Ferrari, who was the chassis technical director at the Scuderia and is going to be taking on a very similar role here, chief technical officer here. We've got Andy Cowell, the Mercedes power unit guru, that was the key component behind Mercedes' dominance when the current 1.6 litre V6s came into force at the start of 2014. He's now back full-time in F1 with this team, so he's going to play a key role, of course. Such major big names, and now, as I say, this is the biggest piece of the puzzle for Lawrence Stroll. He's got Adrian Newey, he's got the man that's really going to be leading that technical department, and as you say, the pressure is on. For Adrian, he says not. He says he's his own man. He's got nothing left to prove. And obviously so, after winning throughout his illustrious career, a combination of 25 constructors and drivers titles across the teams he's been with, McLaren, Williams, and of course, Red Bull most recently. So he says he's got nothing to prove, but you've got to feel that to a certain extent, given the investment that Lawrence is making in Adrian, given the investment that he's delivered overall in conjuring up this magnificent facility here at Silverstone, the state-of-the-art wind tunnel goes online at the end of the year. It's the first fully functioning for F1's wind tunnel that has been constructed for over 20 years. So there is a lot that has been invested in this team in terms of infrastructure, in terms of personnel. Of course, it's got Fernando Alonso as its lead driver. So you've got to feel that it really has to hit 2026, hit the ground running in 2026 when those new power unit regulations come into force. It's a clean slate for everybody, but Lawrence will want to see that all that hard work, all that investment that he's put in over these years really does pay off virtually from the get-go.
I had a little chuckle there because there were some great words, obviously, about Adrian from Lance Stroll and Fernando Alonso. And actually, Adrian had a quite comical line about Fernando and said that Fernando used to be a bit like an arch enemy almost. And now he gets to work with the double world champion. Yeah.
Who knows how close he ever came to working with a 7-time F1 champion in Lewis Hamilton, of course, who joins Ferrari next season. As I mentioned, talks did take place, but for Adrian and Eddie Jordan, his manager, it was that structured package from Aston Martin. Now, of course, yes, he does get to work with Fernando Alonso. Nice little aside from Adrian, where he turned around and said that Red Bull tried to lure Fernando to the team back in 08-09, I think he said after that. If you remember, they had that season with McLaren in 2007 where it didn't really work out for him and he left just after that 1 year, went back to Renault. So it seems Red Bull were very keen on poaching him. It never come to pass. So now, after all these years of being these arch enemies, shall we say, Adrian and Fernando finally get to work with one another. What kind of car will Adrian be able to produce for Fernando? Only time will tell, of course. But Fernando is going to be hoping that after all these years of waiting, he's finally going to get his hands on that third F1 title. Potentially in 2026, as I say, clean slate of paper for every team. Who knows who's going to come flying out the box? But Aston Martin now has every single resource it needs to do so.
Well, you summed it up perfectly. Only time will tell. For those who are watching this video, be sure to let us know your thoughts in the comment section below on Adrian's big move to Aston Martin. And of course, smash that like button, subscribe to the channel, and Ian and I will see you this weekend for the Azerbaijan Grand Prix. See you later.
Thanks for watching. Take care as always, folks.